As you know, the theme of our conference this year is Make Your Impact. It's a great theme, and one we chose hopefully to be a lot more than just a phrase on a screen or on a banner. As an organization, CARE takes pride in our ability to reach communities and to have impact on people's lives. For nearly 7 decades, CARE has made an impact in the lives of many, many people around the globe. Last year, CARE worked in 84 countries supporting 997 poverty-fighting and humanitarian aid projects and directly reached over 83 million people, and we know that we had an indirect effect on so many more. And we're also increasingly able to demonstrate how our work addresses the very issues that we talk about during this meeting. So 68% of CARE's projects last year addressed women's empowerment and gender equality. 26% address sexual and gender-based violence. And more than half of CARE's projects help poor people claim their rights and advocate for policy change at local, regional, and national levels. So the very tools that you've learned from being members of CARE Action Network or that you're learning here at this conference are the skills that our teams are learning and putting into practice all over the world. In that regard, I'm also just so pleased that my counterpart in France, Philippe Levesque, the National Director of CARE, is here with members of his advocacy team to take this experience and tools back to France. So Philippe, would you and your team stand so people could recognize you? Thanks so much for being with us. As Bo said, we were just in Baneen, West Africa, with the CARE Board, visiting our programs there. Gender-based violence is widespread there, as in many countries in which we work, because women are traditionally undervalued and marginalized in these societies. But CARE is helping to change that in many ways. We saw programs to improve land tenure rights for women, village savings and loans programs to help women and men start small businesses, health programs to keep women and children from dying needlessly. But besides their direct impact, we heard over and over again about the indirect impact and benefits of these programs and how they're helping to elevate the status of women within their families and communities. Women talked about their newfound sense of self-confidence and self-worth and self-esteem. Men in the communities talked about how their views of their wives had actually changed as a result of these programs. While they once saw them as burdens and even abused them physically, they came to view their wives instead as valued partners and contributors to the success of their families. So we know we can have impact on an individual and community level. But what about at the national level? In fact, CARE works to empower ordinary citizens in Baneen. We saw that. We saw how ordinary citizens were trained to use and raise their voice and spoke to Parliament last year, demanding laws to prevent abuse and violence against women. And just last year, this grassroots advocacy campaign had a major victory. A year ago, January 2012, the Parliament of Baneen passed Public Law number 26-2011, just like we have here. This new law aims to address and prevent violence against women and girls in Baneen and represents an incredible step forward against gender-based violence in that country. And now, speaking about how CARE contributed to that social movement that made this landmark legislation possible, the Vice President of Baneen's National Assembly said, "CARE planted a tree to be watered for the well-being of the people." I like that. The idea that we helped to nurture a movement of ordinary citizens in a faraway country in West Africa, a movement that grew broader, fuller, larger, a movement that ultimately led to a new law that will protect girls and women from the kind of violence that is unfortunately so pervasive in Baneen, across Africa, Asia, the Middle East, and in so many of the countries in which we work. A movement that we are all part of, in which we all have a role to play right here in Washington. But we know that we have a job to do that is not easy. As you know, these are pretty difficult days here in Washington. But there are signs that even in this tough political climate, our issues are starting to take hold. This week, and in fact, I'm told it may even be as early as tomorrow, the President will sign into law the Violence Against Women Act. Important. This is an important piece of legislation that strengthens protections for women and girls in America. But you should also know that thanks to your hard work, this legislation also has provisions to protect girls and women overseas because it included the text of the Child Marriage Act of 2012. And now here's how you help make that happen. At last year's conference, advocates from 35 states held 153 meetings with congressional offices to speak out against child marriage. Over 11,000 letters were sent by CARE advocates and supporters to Secretary of State Hillary Clinton asking her to make a specific commitment to address child marriage. Over 251,000 actions were taken on social media around the first ever International Day of the Girl last October 11th, including tweets, likes, shares, comments, and video views. And Representative Aaron Schock, on passage of the Violence Against Women Act, cited his experience on a CARE learning trip as being pivotal to his support. He said, "On my trip with CARE to Ethiopia, I saw firsthand how child marriage devastates young girls physically and emotionally while destroying their future. I am grateful that we can finally tell the world that help is on the way." Now that's impact. We all spoke up and Congress responded. We did that, you did that. So we're here today because you believe that together we can have a real impact by raising our voice on Capitol Hill. Tomorrow we're focusing on two key issues that could make serious inroads in the fight against global poverty. First, foreign aid. We need Congress to support a strong international affairs budget, including the most funding possible for all the poverty-fighting accounts. Second, gender-based violence. This is so important. We need to educate our members and speak loudly and clear. Addressing gender-based violence is a priority for us, so we want it to be a priority for you too. We are your constituents and we vote. Those are the messages we hope you can take to Congress tomorrow. I know you've been getting training on the facts and key messages, but I want to emphasize the importance of speaking up, of taking this message to the Hill. I think Senator Frist addressed that so eloquently this morning at breakfast. Likewise, 3 years ago at this very conference, Senator Dick Durbin said this about poverty fighting through advocacy. Don't be discouraged, even in these difficult economic times, because a caring people in the United States of America need to hear your voice to realize that what you stand for are the values that make us a great nation. 2 weeks ago today, John Kerry, our new Secretary of State, said this at the University of Virginia. Foreign assistance is not a giveaway. It's not charity. It is an investment in a strong America and in a free world. You may never meet the people whose lives you'll be changing through your words tomorrow, and you may never know exactly what you did to change their lives. But making your impact means putting the ball in your court, as some might say, or in the sport that I know best, it's putting the shopping cart in your hands. So, you're here to make your impact in a very specific and targeted way. Today, you are here to speak truth to power. You all have the opportunity to be part of something larger than yourselves, something larger than all of us in this room. You have the chance to help change the world. Ultimately, the impact we seek, the greater story in which we all have a part to play, is that quest to end global poverty forever. Don't estimate the power you have to do that. In closing, I want to express my deep gratitude for your participation in this year's conference. It is always so wonderful to celebrate International Women's Day with all of you. And we have a clear, ambitious goal ahead of us. And as you go to your various sessions today, as you're equipped with the knowledge and the tools to raise your voice on the Hill tomorrow, remember, make your impact. For the girls and women in Baneen who need your voice to escape these terrible cycles of violence. Make your impact for the 23-year-old woman in India who was tragically assaulted, raped, and killed by a gang of men in the capital city of New Delhi. Make your impact for the girls like 15-year-old Malala in Pakistan, a champion for girls' education who was shot for simply speaking up, but who is now recovering and more determined than ever to make sure that girls and boys everywhere have the opportunity to get a quality education. Make your impact. Thank you.